Welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. And man, I'm not in Philly this week, but I can almost assure you that there's a whole lot of mayhem going on in the city of Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Eagles fall to the Seattle Seahawks 23-17 and fall to 3-7-1 as a record. And I guess by now we can go ahead and put to bed all the playoff talk and still being in the race. I guess mathematically they're still there, but let's just be realistic about, what's going on. After what we saw last night, with all certainty, I can tell you that the Eagles are not going to win the division, and they're probably not going to win. They're not going to win a playoff spot. And for all intents and purposes, it is my opinion that they probably won't win another game this year with everything that's going on around the team. A lot of speculation about Doug Peterson's job. Today it was reported that, he hasn't even received a vote of confidence either way. Speculation on Howie Roseman's job and the job that he's done in building this roster. Listen, the defense played well enough to win this game last night. The offense continues to struggle. And the special teams, has been anything but special lately, with Jake Elliott missing the PAT over the last couple of weeks, punt returners not fielding punts, giving up field position, putting, the offense in awkward field position, has created a lot of problems. Joining me today to talk about, before I introduce our guest for today, let me say that we have another giveaway this week. You guys have been following over on Facebook. I posted on Facebook and Twitter. My apologies. My Instagram page has been commandeered. I'm working on that to get it back up. But if you go and you follow the Seth Joyner Show over on YouTube, and you leave comments, share some followers over on Facebook and Twitter. On Friday, we will be picking a guest to actually win the mini helmet, the signed mini helmet, and the football. I know a lot of people have been excited about that. There's not been a whole bunch to be excited about, but, we'll give away, have another giveaway at the end of the week. So joining us now is my colleague at NBC Sports Philly and Fox 10 in Philadelphia, John Clark. John is pretty close to the team, doing interviews and analysis and things like that. And John, give us a sense of what it feels like in Philadelphia right now, given, where these Eagles are and everything that's surrounding this football team.
Well, good thing for you. You escaped the city for a little bit. Smart man. And I've always wanted to do your show, but you waited till they were 3-7-1 to have me on. This is a tough spot, right?
Well, listen, I feel like you're close enough to the team that you can share some insight as to, really what's going on. I guess the biggest news right now is Jeffrey Lurie being unhappy. There's reports that he's unhappy with what's going on with the football team. And I remember when Chip Kelly was ran out of town that, Jeffrey said that accountability was now goal number one, and that the GM would be accountable, the head coach would be accountable, the players would be accountable. And here we find ourselves, 3 years removed from the Super Bowl, and there's rumblings that not only is the owner not happy with what he's seeing on the field, but certainly the fans and the media of Philadelphia are calling for someone's head to roll.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the defense, for the most part, has played pretty well. I believe they're a top 10 defense statistically. These last couple games, Eagles were in both games. The defense held them in the games. And really, I think the best word with the offense is that the offense is broken. And I think what they have to determine going forward is it mainly Carson Wentz? Is he just shell-shocked? Has he regressed so much? Or is it that the coaching has not kept him at the level he needs to be at? So, I mean, I think there's so many different things here. First of all, offensive line injuries at the beginning of the year. Carson starts getting hit and sacked, and I think that's affected him big time. It's thrown off his, mental clock. And in the pocket, he doesn't really have a feel now. Sometimes when there's not pressure, he thinks there could be pressure coming, and he doesn't move around the pocket or move up into the pocket as well as he used to. Then I just sense he doesn't throw the ball when he should. Sometimes he hesitates. And is that a lack of trust from the offensive line? And then his skill players, the young skill players who, as you saw last night, they are not in the spot they need to be all the time.
Right.
Such as Dallas Goedert and some of the younger guys. So I just think Carson right now, whether it's confidence or whether it's a lack of belief or trust in everything, he's broken right now. But I still think, and I don't know if you agree with me, Seth, I mean, I think he has the talent to be able to maybe not get back to the 2017 level, but to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And the key going forward is when they decide who to keep and who not to keep. Is it the coaches or is it mainly Carson? Can this coaching staff get Carson out of this?
Well, you bring up a great point, because in my opinion, you always have to, you start looking at the player, but you also have to consider, the plays and what the coaches are actually asking the players to do. The most egregious thing in last night's game is you had the defense that came out on fire, ready to play. They stopped the Seahawks twice, once down on the goal line, they turn it over on downs, and once at about midfield. To me, that was the ultimate disrespect, because what they were really saying to the entire Eagles team is that we're going to go for it on fourth down because we don't believe that your offense has enough firepower to score enough points to beat us. So no matter where we turn it over, whether we leave points on the board on the goal line or whether we give you the ball at midfield, we just don't believe that your offense can do anything against us. So we're going to take our chances here. The other egregious thing is, five straight in the first 5 possessions, they had no first downs. Okay. You're talking 15 plays in a row, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, that they couldn't garner 1 first down. Okay. And the craziest thing is that is in Doug's play calling. When you look statistically, he called 9 running plays to running backs last night. And Carson led the team in rushing last night, and he called 52 plus passing plays with an offensive line that he knew could not hold up and could not protect Carson in the pocket. And he still did not get him out of the pocket. So when you talk about what's going on here, people on Twitter and people who watch the show, John, they believe that, I've got this great hatred for Carson Wentz, that I just don't like him. It's my job to analyze what I see. And I don't see very good quarterback play, but I also know that there's some extenuating circumstances that are surrounding him that's not allowing him to play at his best. The offensive line being one, the play calling being 1A, offensive line 1B. And then, listen, if like you say, these young wide receivers and tight ends aren't where they're supposed to be, that's coaching. Then that falls on Doug Peterson, without a doubt. And in week 12, if they haven't figured it out and they haven't come up with a way to get these issues figured out by now, it's highly likely that it's not going to happen down the stretch with 5 games left in the season.
Yeah, and you know what's scary to me, Seth, is you go back to last night's game. The first down they got was from Carson running on 2nd and 16, I believe it was. He ran for 20 yards. That's how they got their first down. And then another 3rd down, he ran for that as well. And I'm remembering the last 2 games against the Giants and Cleveland, you didn't see him run much at all. Games before against the Giants, the Ravens, they really started to come back in the game and get their offense going when Carson started to run. It's scary to me that it doesn't seem like he can get in any kind of a rhythm or be comfortable in that pocket throwing the ball until he runs. I mean, he really started to look a little bit more comfortable after those runs on that drive to score the touchdown right before the half. So I say, Carson, just keep using your legs, because for some reason it helps get him into the flow of the game or relax him or get him more comfortable. And the slow starts are just absolutely killing the Eagles. If you look at the last 5 or 6 games, they're only averaging 4.5 points in the first half. 4.5 points. In the NFL, the way you win is you build a little bit of a lead, and then you start to run the ball, and then your defense can get after the other team's quarterback because they have to throw. That's the way the Eagles are built. So it's scary to me. These slow starts are just killing any chance for this team.
Well, I think a lot of it, John, has to do with the method that you just described. I think that, this is the new age way to play offensive football. I've had debates and arguments with Joe Banner on Twitter over the same exact thing. And his thing is the same thing that you just said. You build a lead by passing the ball early, and then you run the ball to run the clock out. And from my perspective, there's only a handful of quarterbacks in the NFL that are equipped to do that. Right now, the best at it, is Patrick Mahomes. He's in the league by himself. He can come out and throw the ball 40, 50 times a game, and they're going to have success. But the thing I give Andy Reid a lot of credit for, he's learned how to adapt. And it's won him a Super Bowl, and it's got him on the doorstep of another one back to back. See, I believe that most quarterbacks need a running game. You need a running game so that you can control the line of scrimmage, you can slow down the pass rush, and then off of that, you've got play action pass. Off of that, you've got bootlegs. Off of that, you've got all these misdirection things that you can do, but you can't do that unless you establish the line of scrimmage and you run the ball first, okay? And everyone knows that Doug wants to throw the ball. The thing that scared me the most last night, John, was coming into this game, the Seattle Seahawks was ranked the last, almost dead last in pass defense on a record-setting pace. And I knew that Doug was going to come out and throw the ball. Just, and when they tried to run it early and they didn't get anything, what did he do? He resorted straight to the run. So you're talking about a team that, was darn near last in sacks in the league, and you set yourself up to give them a career day, and they wind up with 7 sacks because you choose to just do it the way that you've been doing. And that's the thing that surprises me the most, is that he's not willing to change, but he wants to do it his way, and he's going to do it his way with his guy, and he doesn't care what it looks like.
Yeah, and look, that first series, right? You could say maybe they should have run the ball once or twice on that first series, the first 3 and out. But what I saw was Carson Wentz. You had the drop from Richard Rodgers to start, and then it looked like a little bit of kind of like an RPO. Fakes a handoff to Miles Sanders, or maybe he would have handed off, and then a real quick Greg Ward looked like a crossing route real quick, but Carson badly missed him. And then the third down, him and Alshon, it didn't look like we're on the same page, and Alshon dropped it. And I'm thinking, like, here we go again. Carson starts a game really slow, and he's not in sync. And even when I look at his technique and a little bit of his footwork to start these games, it's not that confident, plant that foot and drive the ball with your body. And I only started to see that when he ran the ball towards the end of the second quarter. So to me, I just question, if Carson does look this bad to start games, yeah, I would like to see a little bit more of the run, because throwing the ball to start these games obviously isn't working. And you're right. I mean, the Seahawks were giving up, I think, 344 passing yards a game. The only team in the NFL giving up over 300 yards. So to me, it's really almost criminal that I think maybe till mid-fourth quarter, until they had the Hail Mary, I think they only had like 150 yards passing or something like that. So that just shows you how bad the offense is right now. And I wonder. I'm a fan of Carson Wentz. I think he's a character guy, and I think he's got a great skill set, and I think he's got the talent. And he was good last year, so I don't know. It's crazy what's happened, but I would have thought the best spot to just let him sit was the second half in Cleveland. In the rain, you had no points at the half. Just put Jalen Hurts in there and let him run the offense that he can run the ball a little bit, throw the ball, and just give Carson a step back. Take the pressure off a little bit, because I just think it keeps building, Seth. I mean, as they keep struggling, don't you think he just puts more and more and more pressure, and it keeps building on top of them?
Well, there's no doubt about it. The question I'll ask, okay, if, and I've said it and I've been adamant about it, at what point in time do you send the message? Doug's whole rhetoric last week was to sit Carson and play Jalen Hurts is to send the message to the team that you've given up on the season. Okay. I can identify with that. I can get his point. But what is the other message that you send to the rest of the team when other guys are taken off the field for a lack of production? Okay. If a cornerback is getting scorched, what do? You pull him out, you put somebody else in. If an offensive lineman can't block someone, what do? You pull him out, you put somebody else in. You're sending the message that Carson is above everybody else when he's played bad, and he's above reproach to the point where no matter how bad he plays, he's going to stay on the field. I don't think that's healthy for the locker room. I don't think that's healthy for the competitive balance of the football team. So my question to you is, okay, why? I understand why. It's not just, to me, it's not just a confidence thing, but it's one of those situations where you drafted this kid in the second round, okay? And everyone's contention is, oh, he's not ready. He's not ready. He's not ready. My contention is, when Carson Wentz went down in 2017 at the end of the year, Nick Foles came in. He struggled for a game and a half. And then they went back, they pulled some old film, from Chip Kelly days. They implemented some of that offense into what they were doing. They became creative, and they created an offense for Nick Foles to operate and be successful in. So you mean to tell me that you don't have film on Jalen Hurts from Alabama and film on Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma, and you don't have some similarities in the things that you have wrapped up in your offense that you could put together a package for Jalen Hurts and put him out there and let him play? I agree with you. The time that they should have made the move was in Cleveland, okay? But when he got off to a bad start and Jalen Hurts comes in the game, and at that point in time, Carson had only completed one pass. He comes into the game, he rips an out route to Alshon Jeffrey. Timing was perfect. Ball placement was perfect. Accuracy was perfect. And then you pull him right back out of the game, okay? To me, that's the time, where if he comes in and he throws an incomplete pass, then I get it. You bring Carson back in. But for me, it's like, oh, he just completed and threw a great pass. Okay, let's see what else he can do. But instead, you try Carson right back out there to struggle again.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, watching it, I felt uncomfortable watching it. I'm like, this isn't the way to do it. If you were going to play Jalen Hurts a little bit more last night, give him a series. After they go 3 and out 3 or 4 times, give him a series, because as you said, they had a little something going there with an actual completion, and then he's taken out. So I just think the whole thing is a mess right now. And I think this week, Doug is saying all things are on the table. Could he possibly hand over the play calling and just give somebody else a fresh approach? Let them have a crack at it. I wonder if that could happen, because if Doug says it's on the table and he's considering it, that means it is a possibility.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because Doug has said many things in the past, okay? Information got out last week that Jalen Hurts was going to have an expanded role in the offense. Okay.
Yeah.
You go back, and Doug has said over the last 4 or 5 weeks, well, maybe I need to get Carson out of the pocket. I need to roll him out. I need to get him on the move a little bit. Okay. So Doug has said a whole lot of things, but he continues to come back, and I don't know, maybe it's one of those things, there's this old saying, when the pressure's on and the heat is on, we always revert back to that which we're most comfortable with, So is that what's really going on with Doug? And for him to say that all things are on the table, it means absolutely nothing, because he's basically showing us, John, that, for lack of a better term, he's not a man of his word when it comes to things like this that he's said in the past.
Yeah, but you're getting to the point now, Seth, I mean, you're getting to the point now where this offense is just going backwards. I mean, you look back at the Ravens and the Steelers games and games like that, they played pretty well. I mean, they scored 29 points in Pittsburgh. Now, I know they were shut out in the first half against the Ravens, but they put up 28 in the second half against the Ravens. So this team has gone backwards offensively. They're getting worse every game. So I think in his discussions, his weekly discussions with Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie, I'm sure they are saying, we have to consider changes here. We have to consider switching it up. And they obviously haven't switched up the quarterback. And when I say come in against Cleveland for that second half, I'm saying, yes, let Jalen Hurts play the second half and then put Carson back in for the next game. I'm not saying Jalen takes over, kind of like what Andy did with Donovan in 2008, and it worked. But I think you're getting to the point now where something has to change, because I think it's really smacking everybody in the face that this offense is going nowhere and it's going backwards. So whether it's, I think the question is, who would you let call the plays? I'm not so sure you want to let Press Taylor call the plays. I don't necessarily know what's going on with that relationship. So who do you let call the plays? Do you let Deuce Staley, or do you let Cinderella, who came in? I don't know. It's not like they have an incredible candidate. I think Deuce does a great job. I don't know if he can call a game. I don't know. Maybe he can. So I wonder who the candidate would be to give him a shot at it. But I think something has to change here, because you can't keep doing this. And I think the pressure just keeps building on Carson Wentz. And Seth, you really have to find out if Carson Wentz is still your franchise quarterback after this year because of the money. You got to get him right some way, somehow. So I think you might see something here, because if Doug puts it out there that he is considering giving up the play calling, which he said he takes a lot of pride in and he loves, and he was great at it for 2017, 2018 as well, when they were 4-6 or something like that, and Nick Foles took over again. And last year, winning the division when they looked down and out. So I do think you're gonna see a change here, because I think Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman are also saying we do need to change this up a little bit.
Well, I think I'm of the opinion, excuse me, and I've said it before, I think Doug walks away before he's forced to hand over the play calling abilities. I don't think he has enough confidence in anybody else on that staff to make those play calls. I mean, you talk about Deuce. He had an opportunity last year, when Deuce has been with him since he's been here, to hand over the offensive coordinator job to him. What did he do? He made him the assistant head coach, and they promoted him, but they didn't give him that job. So I don't think he gives up play call. And I honestly believe that he says bye-bye, if Jeffrey and Howie try to force his hand and make him do that. As far as Carson is concerned, listen, I've never been an advocate that Jalen Hurts should take over and Carson shouldn't start again. Right. I think that, at times you have to light a fire under players. And I also believe that, competition is a good thing. I think it brings out the best in your team. And I don't care whether you're talking about the quarterback or you're talking about the kicker. Question for you, as far as, this whole Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts thing is concerned. Do you believe that there's an in-house divide or camps, if you will, as far as, who believes what, that, Carson should continue to play or Hurts should continue to play, from the standpoint of Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, or maybe even leave Jeffrey out? Let's just say Howie, and Doug Peterson, because it seems like Doug realizes that his wagon is hitched to Carson Wentz. I think some people believe that Hurts pick was not a pick that Doug really wanted to see happen. He was trying to get away from the whole Nick Foles, Carson Wentz deal. And when they picked Jalen Hurts, all they did was pull the scab off that wound and open it up all over again. And I think that, Howie was more concerned with the long-term health of Carson Wentz. And that's the reason why this move was made for Hurts. And I feel like, there may be some kind of divide between Howie and Doug Peterson when it comes to, these two players.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying, and I agree with you, because I think the main premise of drafting Jalen Hurts was, one, Carson wasn't there for all the playoff games, wasn't able to stay healthy, and he's got over $100 million guaranteed, and he is our franchise quarterback, and he's not out there for the biggest moments, sadly. And then number two is, I think they're enamored with that style of quarterback with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, and all these guys that you're seeing right now have so much success. Russell Wilson, of course, who they didn't take, I think it was, 8 years ago or whatever. So I think those are the two main factors. And I agree that Doug's job is tied to Carson Wentz being the Carson Wentz that we've seen before. And if Carson Wentz can't get back to that point, then sadly, I think Doug is going to pay the price, because the coach is going to be the one that pays the price if Carson can't get right. Because let's face it, Carson's money, and they're tied into him because of the financial commitment. So I think that they all want Carson to do well, and I think they want Carson to be the guy. And the financial commitment is there. And I wonder why Doug hasn't taken him out for a half or something like that. Because obviously Doug sees that he can get Carson correct, and he can get him to the point where he is Carson again. But Seth, I got to tell you, I see Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, 13-3 last year, NFC title game. And they went and drafted a quarterback in the first round. And what is he doing this year? It has lit a fire with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he is throwing the ball better than I have ever seen him. So what did it do? He reacted the right way mentally. And like you said, competition has improved Aaron Rodgers. If any of that is in Carson's head, that's disappointing to me, because you have to be able to take the pressure. Playing quarterback in Philadelphia, you're going to have to put up with all of this, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody were to wilt under the ghost of Nick Foles and then feeling Jalen Hurts over your shoulder, then that guy ain't ready for the big moments and the bright lights and to win a Super Bowl on his own. And I don't think that's the heart of it. I do think Carson has tried to do too much a lot of times because of the ghost of Nick Foles winning a Super Bowl. But man, if I see Jalen Hurts drafted, I say, you know what? I'm going to work even harder. I'm going to work more on my technique, my footwork. I'm going to spend extra time with the receivers, and it's going to put a chip on my shoulder to do even better. Wouldn't you do that as a player?
Well, there's no doubt about it. That's why I said, for me, it's different because, you as an 8th round draft pick, you got to compete your entire career. You're trying to prove people wrong that they made the wrong decision by waiting so long to draft you. So competition has always been at the top of, my list of what I have to do on a daily basis. To your point about, Doug not wanting to play him, sometimes I kind of get the sense that, there's a fear, not only with Carson, but a fear with Doug, that if he put Jalen in and Jalen plays well, that there's this fear of that success. And then what do you do now?
But Seth, Doug knows his main job is to win.
Right.
So to me, he's seeing this season go down the drain. And I think, don't you at the heart of it agree, if he thought Jalen Hurts could come in and do better than Carson, that he would have Jalen Hurts in there?
I don't think so.
No.
Listen, it is about the wins and the losses. I don't think he goes into any game believing that Carson can't lead the team to victory.
Right.
I don't believe that. I believe that he's more tied to Carson's success than he would be to the success of Jalen Hurts, because it kind of seems to me that, this is the guy that they wanted, 5 years ago. They traded, they did what they had to do to move up to number 2 to get him. Okay. But I get the sense also that this is the guy that Doug wanted. Okay. Above everybody else, this is the guy that Doug wanted. And if he has to move away from him because the second round pick in 2020 has an opportunity to play and he does well, that doesn't look good on him. It looks good on Howie, but it doesn't look good on him.
It's interesting. I mean, I do think a head coach, though, says, like, for example, right now, let's say Nick Foles was still the backup quarterback, right? Do you think that he would have played Nick Foles at some point in these games?
Absolutely.
Yes, and I agree with that. So is it a matter of Jalen Hurts is drafted, but there's a pandemic. They didn't have any on-the-field work in the offseason. It was all virtual. And then training camp, you're supposed to get that base of everything with the OTAs. They didn't have that. So the fact is Jalen is just not or hasn't been up to this point ready with the entire offense, understanding it, all the concepts, and having run enough, plays in practice.
Okay, so let me pose this to you. Then they've been derelict in their duty because what they did was after week 1, they moved Nate Sudfeld from the backup quarterback to the number 3 quarterback, and they moved Jalen Hurts into the number 2 spot. Okay, so now what you're saying is this guy is our backup quarterback. With Carson Wentz's injury history, he is one play away from being on the field anyway. So if he's not ready, that kind of throws all the BS out the window when anyone says that he's not ready. Because if he's not ready, and Nate Sudfeld has been in this offense, 4 years longer than Jalen Hurts, if he's not ready, then what is he doing being the backup quarterback?
Well, okay.
Something smells fishy here, man.
Well, wait, but that's another issue. I think they see that Jalen Hurts has more ability than Nate Sudfeld, or more of the ability that they like, being able to move around the pocket. Not only that, but you can do a lot of things with him on the run and run pass option. It's a threat to the defense. So I think we're talking about two different things. Nate Sudfeld, okay, he's not as good as Jalen Hurts, right? Because if they thought Nate Sudfeld was, he'd be the backup. But Seth, I honestly believe that Doug Peterson has to win some games here. He has to get his quarterback right, but he's also got to win some games here. I mean, his job is to win football games, right? And we both said that if Nick Foles was still here, that he probably would have been given a chance. And I believe that too. So my only thing can be is that Jalen Hurts just isn't completely ready yet. That can be my only thing, because Carson has, this is a historical struggle here. This is a historical regression. I saw the statistic today that, no quarterback in the last 36 years has this many interceptions and this many sacks through 11 games. It's historically bad. So it's shocking to me that they didn't just take Carson out, more so to alleviate the pressure. Let him just sit back for a second and breathe a little bit, because we all know Carson probably is trying to do too much, and it's just compounding. But Seth, what's going to happen these next couple games? Because you're going to Green Bay right now, right? And I was just told a couple Green Bay Packers players remember that loss to the Eagles last year, right? Mm-hmm. Eagles went there. They ran the ball really, really well. And Carson played a really good game in Green Bay last year on Thursday night. They won that. So you're going to Green Bay. Then New Orleans is coming here. They're 9-2. They're in first place. So what happens with these next couple games if it gets really bad? What happens?
Well, he's probably going to make the move that he probably should have made when in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Listen, there's no doubt about it. I'm just of the opinion, I don't buy. You can't make that guy your number 2 quarterback and you deactivate your number 3 quarterback every single week of the season and then feed me that he's not ready. Okay. Because you got to realize that he is one play away from having to play. Okay. And if you haven't prepared him, that's on the coaching staff that he's not prepared. Look at this kid. He started off at Alabama. He lost his job to Tua. He goes to Oklahoma, goes in the transfer portal. He goes to Oklahoma. He picks up the Oklahoma offense in one offseason and lights college football up, okay? And you're going to tell me that in however many weeks of training camp with no preseason games and 12 weeks of the season that he hasn't learned enough of the offense that you can put together a mini package for him and put him out there and allow him to play? The 2 passes or the 3 passes that he's thrown this year, he seemed to know where the hell to go with the ball.
And it was quick, right? It was quick.
Absolutely.
Ball was out quick. And that's, Seth, that is my biggest thing. It's like with Carson, I need to see that ball out quick decisions. And that leads us to the other thing that we've been talking about. I see all of the Jared Goff run plays in Sean McVay's offense. He is moving around a lot of boots. You're getting him rolling out. I just don't know why that hasn't happened more. And Doug has said he can do that more, and yet it still doesn't happen. I just, for the life of me, can't figure that out.
Ron, you can't do it. I mean, if you look at the Rams have committed to running the football this year. I mean, they are hit you in the mouth because they realize that if they can run the ball, then all that stuff that they want to do, they can do it. You can't fool the defense into buying into the run fake if you don't establish the run first. And that is exactly what the problem is with Doug, is he will not commit to running the ball to begin with that will allow him to do all of those other things. It's just one thing compounds another, okay? No running game, pass rush, you guys are pinning their ears back. They're coming to get your quarterback. He's under duress. He's inaccurate. He's missing guys that are wide open, and people keep saying, listen, today I was supposed to start a new segment on the show, Chalk Talk, where I was going to do a video breakdown. We had some technical errors and we weren't able to post it today. One of the plays was that ball that he underthrew to Dallas Goedert. Okay. In a lot of respects, it was the right read. But when I stopped that film and I looked and I seen 2 wide open wide receivers to his left. Now, granted, the pressure was coming. Okay, there's nothing they could do. The offensive line cannot pick up games. That is their problem. That's the crux of their problem right now. And teams see it. So they're running all kind of loop games, TE games, ET games, TT games. They're running everything that you can think of. XYZ game. They're running it all. And our line isn't able to pick it up. But on that play, he had 2 wide open guys that he could have got the ball to. And it would have been major pickups. Okay. But he went for the shot. And there was nothing wrong with that because Goddard had Bobby Wagner beat dead to rights. Okay. So now everybody says, oh, he got hit as he was releasing the ball. The problem was, John, when you really look at it, he was 2 seconds, 3 seconds too late letting it go. He does not throw with anticipation. He does not throw with trust. Goddard was on the left hash and he already had Bobby Wagner beat. All he had to do was let it go up the right hash, and it's a touchdown if he puts enough air under it and lets Goddard run under it. What does he do? He holds it for 2 beats too long, and he throws towards the numbers. And now it's underthrown. The ball hits Bobby Wagner in the head, and they get nothing out of that play. So I say that for 2 reasons. Let's stop talking about that the wide receivers aren't open. Yes, it's hard for them to get open in man-to-man coverage because they don't know how to run routes. I thought that by now, four wide receiver coaches under Doug's tenure, that we would find a wide receiver coach that could teach receivers how to run routes. Okay. But when I watch these guys run routes, they're getting pressed at the line of scrimmage. The defenders are putting their hands on them, and they're just trying to run their routes through the jam, which is only helping the defense. Hello, it's football. You can use your hands to get off the jam. You can fight the same way that they're fighting you. And then when they get into their routes, there's no stem. There's no setting the routes up because Carson probably doesn't have time if they got to set the routes up. It's a chain reaction of things that you see that's going on. And Carson doesn't have the confidence to just let the ball go. And the thing that I saw with Jalen Hurts, when he got that ball 1, 2, 3, bam, it's out of his hands on time and rhythm and very accurate. And I don't know. The big question is, how do you fix Carson? For 12 weeks, you've been trying to figure out how to fix this guy. How do you fix him? I say you fix him by running the darn football.
Yeah, now I thought for a little while that maybe Miles Sanders was not getting the ball enough, running the ball, because he does seem to get nicked up, and he has had a couple of injuries. And so maybe they were trying to save him and just trying to keep him fresh. But I agree. I think they could have run the ball a little more to start the game. Now, then again, Seattle, they understand that they don't really have to be worried about a deep threat when you've got Alshon Jeffrey out there and really Travis Fulgham. Travis Fulgham is not going to run by anybody, right? So they're able to crowd the line of scrimmage. And I don't think the Eagles were too successful running the ball. So I think for a coach like Doug and Andy Reid, if you're not getting 4 or 5 yards a carry, boom, they're going to start throwing the ball more. But I just think this whole thing is broken, and you need to have some change. Whether that's putting Jalen in for a little bit, whether that's Doug letting somebody else call the plays for a little bit, design some other plays for Carson. Let's see him rolling out. Let's see him on the move. And it just hasn't happened enough. The slow starts last night, 5 3-and-outs, I believe, or 4 3-and-outs. And those are the scripted plays, right? And after the game, Carson said Seattle came out defensively showing us something that we didn't expect or that we hadn't seen. Did you hear Carson say that?
Mm-hmm.
Was there any change or adjustment?
Not at all. And I can tell you the biggest problem that they had was trying to figure out what to do with Jamal Adams. Nobody could block him. Tight ends couldn't block him. Backs couldn't block him. Tackles couldn't block him. Nobody could block the guy. And then one of the reasons, in my opinion, why the run game really didn't work is because, listen, Jamal Adams is like Tyrann Mathieu. When he starts walking down around the line of scrimmage, you got to be aware of what he's doing and where he is at all times, okay? So when that guy walks down into the box, you're basically in an 8-man front. You're not running the ball against the 8-man front. That's the time for Carson to check. You got a single high safety, okay? That's the time to check and go to your slants, go to your back shoulders, maybe even go to your RPO where you pull the ball and you throw the ball. But they were trying to run into the 8th man, and the 8th man is the guy that's unaccounted for, which drove me insane last night. So when you talk about adjustments, I'm watching the game, okay? I get paid to analyze. I don't play anymore. I don't coach. But I can look at the game and tell you what the heck is going on. I can tell you what's about to happen while I watch the game. And when I see Jamal Adams walk down in the box, or I see him walk down outside of the tight end, that means that there's problems, okay? So you either got to go away from that guy, you either got to run away from that guy, or you got to throw the ball away from that guy, because he's not down there just because, they love playing him in the box. He's down there to make something happen. And Doug and company did not adjust to that one iota last night. This guy just messed up everything that they wanted to do in the running game, and they had no answer for it.
Seth, this is depressing. This is depressing. I mean, and the thing is, we saw a good stretch of football. Travis Fulgham, best receiver in the NFL for 4 games. He had the most yards, at San Francisco, and in the games after that. And I believe it was Pittsburgh, right? Baltimore against the Giants. I mean, so it's mystifying, Seth. It's so mystifying to me what has happened here. But you're right. The number one thing you have to do is get your best players the football, right? And Miles Sanders, can we get him involved a little bit more in the passing game? And I'm not just talking about the check or the dump where Carson throws the ball low to him every single time and Miles is dropping it every time. But what happened to a wheel route? What happened to somehow designing a play where Miles gets lined up on a linebacker? We haven't seen that Miles Sanders passing game enough.
I have in my notes right here, why has Miles Sanders and Travis Fulgham disappeared from the offense? Okay. I understand what's going on with Travis Fulgham. You're paying Alshon Jeffrey $10 million. He's going to play. Okay. And I get it. Travis Fulgham needs to play because at this point in both of their careers, Travis Fulgham is the better player. Okay. But to your point about Miles Sanders, everything that he runs is a flat route or swing route. Okay. They don't use him like Sean Payton uses an Alvin Kamara. Okay. In third down situations or situations where you want to spread everybody out and you get a designated man-on-man coverage. I don't care whether it's against a safety on Miles Sanders. Okay. You've got over routes. You got check through the line of scrimmage routes. You got your Texas route where he looks like he's going, to the flat and he cuts back underneath. Run him on a seam route against cover 2. There's so many things that you can do with this guy. And both of these guys who have been, arguably your most productive offensive weapons with exception to Dallas Goedert last night, they just completely disappeared from the offense. And we're wondering why. We're wondering why it is Carson Wentz is struggling. It's not just him, but when it is him, it's compounded. It's exacerbated. Like he can't miss throws when guys are open. He can't miss check downs to Miles Sanders. Put the ball on his numbers.
Yeah.
Put the ball on guys, out in the flat where they can catch the ball and do something with it instead of having to reach above their head, get their feet. And in the meantime, you're giving the defense time to close. But all of these things kind of fall into, and they're part and parcel to why this offense is so anemic right now. And listen, they're not going to be able to get Carson out of the pocket unless they commit to run the ball. Teams are not going to allow them to run the ball because they want Carson to throw the ball because he's been inaccurate. He doesn't make good decisions, and he doesn't make good decisions under duress. So, I don't know how you fix this. They're certainly not going to be able to fix it this year.
Well, it's interesting because you talked about how they got Nick Foles right for that playoff run. They went back and looked at all that video. And really what it was is taking the thinking out of it, right? It's like read and react. Boom. And so if you're running RPO, it's kind of real quick. You read the defensive end, and then you've got your decision made, and you go boom. How come they don't run more RPO with Carson? Does he not like it? Is he not able to do it?
I think that they're afraid. I think they hold their collective breaths. Howie, Doug, and Jeffrey, anytime that Carson's running the ball. I think they hold their breath. And I don't think they call plays for Carson to have a running option because of that, because they're afraid to get him hurt again and for that tag to be hung again on him that he's injury prone. So they don't want to put him in those positions. But you can't tell me that he can't run anything that Jalen Hurts can run, Carson Wentz can run. Okay. So you put Jalen in there to run these read options and to run RPOs, but you take Carson out, you have none of that in the game plan for him. It makes no sense. And I tweeted last night, I love what he did toward the end of the first half. Don't stand in there and get beat up. If there's an alley for you to take off and run, especially if they're in man coverage, take off and run. Don't stand there and take all of those sacks. He's on pace to break the record for sacks in a single season. Don't stand in there. If Doug's not going to help you by running the football, and he's not going to help you by keeping the back and the tight end in to help in protection, then get the hell out of there and protect yourself.
And that got the offense going. That was the thing that got the offense going. Ah, man.
Well, John, listen, we got about 10 minutes left. You guys are watching the Seth Joyner Show. My special guest today is John Clark from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Let's talk about the defense for the last 10 minutes. The defense played outstanding last night. I thought that Jim Schwartz, called a tremendous game. I also believed as I watched that game that it was just a matter of time before Russell Wilson was going to find a way to get a deep ball to DK Metcalf. And that just basically, blew the roof off of, such a great effort. They came out, they were inspired. They played with energy. They played with aggression. They played with, they were tenacious last night. Derek Barnett, Jalen Mills, Rodney McLeod. Listen, those guys came, Alex Singleton. What the heck took them so long to get that guy on the field? Those guys, Fletcher Cox, they played their behinds off last night. But when I look at how DK Metcalf systematically took apart one of the elite cornerbacks in this game, and Jim Schwartz did nothing to help him, there was a quote where Jim Schwartz said, I respect him. And then the report that's out there, that he challenged him, kind of gave him some bulletin board material before the game. But he said he respected DK Metcalf. Well, you didn't respect him enough to give your guy some help. You let him get torched, 10 catches for 177 yards. And I would have said, if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm putting a safety over him every play. And I'm saying to everybody else, hold up. Prove to me that you can beat me with everybody else. But I'm not going to let that guy beat me. And that guy was the difference in the game. Because if you take away his production, the Eagles probably win that game last night. So there's a lot of blame to go around on the offensive side of the ball. But even as good as the defense played, there's got to be some blame that goes to Jim Schwartz in the way that in the position that he put Darius Slay in last night, and his lack of being able to adjust to what the Seahawks were doing and what they wanted to do.
Now, Darius said, I don't need help.
It's clear he needed some help. I don't know whether he needed a dog or whether he needed a bodyguard or whether he needed Jim Schwartz to give him some help. But it was pretty darn clear by the time they got to halftime that he needed some darn help. Yeah.
Now, he had pretty darn good coverage on 2 or 3 of those that DK Metcalf is just a beast with no separation, 50-50 balls. Mm-hmm. He's coming down with them.
Well, listen, I agree. And one of my breakdowns for today was a play where Darius Slay had him. He caught that fade route on the sideline. The thing that I don't like technique-wise when I watch this secondary play is, A, they're not very fundamentally sound, and B, I'm not so sure that they're playing – I feel like they're playing technically the way that Jim wants them to play rather than what's technically sound. And this is what I mean. They'll get up and press, and instead of getting their hands on the guy, you always see them jump back and they're moving backwards, okay? It puts you in a precarious position because when you're trying to cover a guy that runs 4.3 and you're moving backwards and he's going forward, by the time you open your hips, he's already even with you. And when he's even with you, you know the saying, he's leaving you, okay? So on that one play that we were talking about, DK lined up in the slot, but he was on the line. And Darius lined up in press technique. So my thing is, okay, you're in man free. You got help over the top. Either line up outside and jam him with your outside hand and force the inside release, knowing that you got inside help, or line up inside and jam with the inside hand and force the outside release Now you get in the hip pocket, okay? So when he's running down the field, he's almost chest to chest with him, and he has no idea where the ball is. He has no idea when the ball's coming, where the ball's coming, whether it's inside, outside, high, low. He has no clue, okay? The proper technique is you jam him with the inside hand, you get on the inside hip, you roll, and now what I want to do, John, is I want to get my back against his chest with my arm across his chest. So now I can look back because I can feel him, and now I can push him towards the sideline without it being a PI call, but I can see the ball and I can turn and make a play on the ball. Now, granted, Russell threw the perfect ball because if you look at it closely, he caught that ball with one hand because Darius had him by his right hand, and DK actually caught that ball with his left hand. But Russell threw the ball, he put it right in the basket. And the problem is when you watch our defensive backs, they don't play the football because they don't try to get back into position to play the football. And to me, that's a coaching liability more than anything else.
Yeah, and I love that, what you were talking about. Do you like for a cornerback to defend, like you said, where you're looking back for the ball, or do you like the technique of you're defending him and you watch for when the receiver's hands come up and you're not looking at the quarterback, you see the hands come up, and then you try to knock the ball down?
You know what the problem with that is, John? There are so many offenses out there that play to get the PI. When you don't turn your head around, almost 90% of the time, you're going to get a pass interference. Even if the guy catches the ball, you're still going to get the flag, you know? So my thing is, and I get why they do it because they're afraid of the back shoulder throw, you know, but you can't play this game scared. It's just like man coverage. You can't line your cornerback up on the outside of a fast wide receiver and expect for him to cover from that position all game long. Sometimes you got to switch it up, okay? Even in single high safety. So what's the fear? You don't have those fears when you're in two high safeties. Why? Because you've got over-the-top help. You've got two guys back there that are responsible for half the field. In single high, you only got one guy, and the good quarterbacks, what do? They look you off, and then they come back. So what's the route that they're afraid of? They're afraid of the outside route, which I say, hey, your 12th man is the sideline, and they're afraid of the 7 route. That's the only route that can beat you. Those are the only two routes. And I look around the NFL, and everybody plays man coverage from outside in. Now, if that guy runs 4-3 and he takes off across the field and you run 4-4, you have no shot at catching it.
Yeah.
So why do you play that way? Because even if the safety does react to it from single high, it's 15, 20 yards before you can even get him on the ground. I just don't understand the philosophy of why they play the way that they play, you know? And I don't know, it just drives me crazy, man. When I watch football today, I'm completely dumbfounded because the game that I learned, the way that I learned how to play the game, and I know the game has changed, but the more the game changes, the more the game stays the same. It's been a passing league forever. Oh, you got to come out and throw the ball. Look around the league. Teams are doing what? They're reverting back to the run game, okay? Because they realize that when they run the football, everything in their play sheet is wide open. But when you can't run the football and you're playing against a team with a good pass rush and a good secondary, you don't stand a snowball's chance of being successful that day.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching Derrick Henry, man. He will run you over, stiff arm you, and he wears teams down. It's amazing what he's doing in Tennessee.
You need a Derrick Henry. I get that, okay? But I know as a defensive player, you know, the most demoralizing thing in the world that the offense can do to a defense is run the ball down your throat, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And then fourth quarter, especially if it's cold out, you don't want to be tackling him.
Yeah. And you know, what ultimately happens is in this past happy era that we're in, you make your own self offensively one-dimensional. So now you're sending the message. I'm telling my D lineman, I'm like, hey, go get him. Go get him. If they run a draw, they run the ball, they run a screen, don't worry about it. I got it covered. Yeah. If I'm the linebacker, you know, because if you're just not going to run the ball and you're not going to commit to it, and you send that message to the opposing defensive coordinator and to the opposing defense, why would I play it? I'm going to play the run on the way to the quarterback. That's what they're doing with Carson. It's exactly what they're doing with him.
But got to tell you, my favorite thing in football right now is watching Patrick Mahomes throw the ball. Nothing better.
Well, and I'll tell you this, he's doing it. He's doing it because, A, he's extremely talented and he's a generational quarterback. He's also doing it because, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs do continue to try to run the ball to keep the defenses honest. And he's doing it because when I watch the Kansas City Chiefs and I watch their game planning is built more around the deficiencies of a defense and the technical and fundamental breakdowns that they know that are going to be prevalent than it is schematic. You know, like the Eagles, for example. You can run if you're an offense, if you're an offense against our defense, you can run a bootleg anytime you want. Because on all play away, our defensive ends close. And when they close, that bootleg is open all the time. Yep. Every single time. I mean, you could probably run shovel plays against our offense out in the open field, you know, on your own 20-yard line and be successful with it. Because anytime you get in motion away, we crash every time. And Jim Schwartz has not adjusted to the fact that teams are game planning that now, you know. So all of this rhetoric about how great these offensive minds are, the Sean McVays, you know, the Shanahans, they look very, very smart. But to someone with a football mind, you understand that they're game planning your inefficiencies and your lack of fundamentals in your technique. If you clean that up, all of those little gadget plays, all of that little trickery that they like to do, we used to call that, you know, finesse football. What do you do with a finesse team? You hit them in the mouth and they'll lay down. They'll quit, you know, because they can't dominate the line of scrimmage. So what do? They revert to trickery. And the trickery works because you're fundamentally unsound. It's just like penalties. Why do guys get penalties? Because they're out of position and they're beat.
Yep.
You hold because the guy got you beat. You get a PI because the guy got you beat. If you're not beat because you're in position and you're fundamentally sound, you don't have to worry about penalties. You don't have to worry about those types of penalties. I just, you know, listen, we could go on and on and on, man. The game frustrates me. This Eagles football team frustrates me. Somebody texted me today, man, what's going on with your team? I'm like, I can't even respond. I got no answer for you, man. We just stink right now, and that's the cold hard facts. And I shudder to think what this team is going to look like next year. You know, I like Doug, you know, contrary to what people may believe. I think he's a good coach, but I think he really missed some guys that have exited from here. And I think he's between a rock and a hard place. And when I watch him in press conferences, I don't know if you see it, he looks worn, man. He looks worn out. You know, in that report before the game yesterday that he wouldn't mind being fired. Hey, listen, man, you can only stand so much. You can only stay in the kitchen so long. And Philly is a rough place to play when you're not doing well for players and coaches, man.
You're right about that, man.
Hey, listen, man, I appreciate your time. I tell my guests every single week, our most valuable commodity is our time. And my friend, I appreciate you giving me 60 minutes of yours today.
Love it, man. I appreciate you having me on with you. I love hearing you talk football, man. It's awesome.
And I'm going to have you back next year or in the offseason. I'll have you back in the offseason when there's not so much nonsense going on. But I'll have you back next year when the Eagles are 5-0 rather than 3-7-1.
Perfect.
All right, that's our show for today, guys. Thank you for watching the Seth Joyner Show. Remember our giveaway. Go over to, follow us on Facebook to be able to figure out how to qualify for those. Obviously, you want to go over to YouTube and follow the channel, and on Facebook and Twitter. You can qualify there as well. Next week, we're going to have our Chalk Talk section where we kind of break down, one or two plays that happened in the game. We'll have another great guest for you next week. I want to thank my producers, Tom Schrader and Derek Stevenson. And like I always say, be good to each other and take care of each other. But most important, love each other. Peace. I'll see you guys next week.